Welcome to COASTER-net Uncut.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I am, of course, Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by Mr. Ride Warrior himself, Mr. Danny Miller. Danny, how is it going this evening?
I'm doing fantastic tonight, Andy, and we just flipped the calendar over into August. I can see you're being a little lax with your calendar over there, but I can't blame you. Leaving that beautiful picture of Fury 325 up there. I mean, to be honest, that next picture in August wasn't taken by a great photographer anyway. I wonder who took that one. But we flipped the calendar over into August, and so we're more than halfway through the theme park season, really, of 2016, and that's an exciting time when we get to the end of July, beginning of August, because we start to think about what's coming for next year, and we start to get teases, and we start to get announcements. We had Invadar announced quite a long time ago for Busch Gardens Williamsburg. We've got parks like Fiesta Texas and Carowinds and Valley Fair teasing, and then we hadn't really heard a whole lot for 2017 for a while, but then all of a sudden we've got all these parks teasing, and now in the last week we've got Kings Island that made an announcement. We've got Cedar Point and Hershey Park making announcements this week. So, we're going to eventually talk about all of them, but tonight we're going to talk about maybe the most exciting one for our audience. And which one is that, Andy?
That is the Mean Streak one. That should come as no surprise to any longtime viewers of COASTER-net Uncut, because, Danny, if you go way back to 2 years ago in our Cedar Point 5-year plan show, we predicted this exact scenario happening. We said that, that this year, the 2016, is the 25th anniversary of Mean Streak, and that as a big birthday present, they would announce its closing. That we were a little bit wrong. We said they'd do some sort of celebration. There was no celebration whatsoever.
We thought there was going to be like this Big Bad Wolf grand celebration of the final closing, and then it was like, nope, get in the axe September 16th. Come on out and ride it, y'all.
And we found out that getting the axe is actually pretty interesting, because getting the axe, what does that even mean? Like, come on, like, does anyone know what that means?
That's what I had to laugh about when I saw the video, because I that you texted me right about I went into a 10 o'clock meeting at work, and you had just texted me and be like, so what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm going into a meeting. I'll see it at 11. And I get back, and I have like a bunch of texts from you. I have a bunch of Twitter notifications. I have Facebook messages. And it's like I waited until my lunch break at noon to actually watch the video. And I'm like, getting the axe, that tells us nothing.
Nothing at all.
And to be fair, am I back me up on this. When you and I talked last week, I said, I don't think this Monday announcement is going to tell us what's happening. It's going to be an announcement of the closing, and we're going to get a later announcement that tells us what's actually happening. And it turns out that's what we got. Because getting the axe could mean several different things, and I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight, as to what getting the axe actually means.
A few things. When I saw the video, I was really surprised. I was really surprised because I didn't think, even though we had predicted this happening, everything going around the park, I didn't think it was actually going to happen. I thought they were going to go with the water park expansion, that there was a lot of activity going around the park last year with the clearing out of Challenge Park and all this stuff happening. And I thought, well, it just leads itself to say water park, which we still don't know if that isn't happening. So that's what makes this really interesting.
Get a water park thing on top of all of this. I mean, it's really funny, because we had gotten so far along in the process of not announcing something, because I've always said that if it was going to be an RMC treatment, if you look back at Texas Giant a little bit smaller than Mean Streak. So if Mean Streak was going to do something along the lines of Texas Giant, it's going to be a huge project. Texas Giant took over a year to do. Now, RMC has gotten more people since then. They've grown a lot in the last 5 years. But, the fact that we've seen a lack of potential projects for RMC in 2017 is maybe kind of telling you that maybe it's going to be all hands on deck for Mean Streak, and maybe that's their only project because they had 4 this past year, and 4 is proving to be a bit too many for them in 1 year. 3 probably would have been the perfect number. So if they're going to do this big Mean Streak project and it's all hands on deck, they could maybe close it in the middle of September and have it ready for the second week in May, whereas we originally thought, well, it's going to close in July and it's going to be closed for almost a full year. And, we got down to the end of July and didn't hear anything, and we were like, I was in the camp that I don't think anything's happening to it for next year because it's just getting too late, but maybe not.
So, with Mantis's closing, everyone and their uncle knew what was happening there. Everyone knew that they were going to go with floorless trains.
There was
going to make
secret there.
Yeah, no one actually thought Mantis was going to be removed from the park completely. With Mean Streak, I think there are a few scenarios. And we'll go into the validity of each one of these, but I think it comes down to a complete removal of Mean Streak and a building of a brand new ride. That's an option. I think you have the RMC Iron Horse treatment, where that's an option. You have GCI coming in and just retracking it, which I don't feel is that strong of an option given what we know. And I think the dark horse candidate that I've been throwing around a lot lately is GCI coming in with their own Iron Horse-like conversion process.
Yeah, and that's the idea that you had.
Yeah. So why don't we start there? Because I think that's the most unlikely of the group. And the reason why the way I came up with this is that we know Cedar Fair likes to work with GCI. Okay, that they've worked with GCI and Ghost Rider this past year. They're building a GCI in Kings Island, which I think precludes them and eliminates them from building a brand new GCI. I don't think they're going to tear down Mean Streak and build a brand new GCI.
That's the funny thing here, isn't it?
Because
that's a big question mark.
Why would you build a GCI at Kings Island and build another GCI 4 hours to the north at Cedar Point in the same year? You don't see them do that within a span of 5 years ever, that they don't put the same thing in at the two parks. Well, they did with the Windseekers, but who cares? But it's just like, I don't know why you would do that in the same year, because those two rides are constantly going to be compared to one another. In theory, the Cedar Point ride's going to be better. Would you agree with that? That if you're going to tear down Mean Streak, the GCI put there is probably going to be better than the one at Kings Island. And then I have to listen to all the Kings Island fanboys cry for the rest of their lives that they got the worst of the two GCIs.
Here's the thing, though. So and just so if I look off the screen, we're trying this Facebook Live thing here for the first time tonight. But I have my headphones in, so people can only hear what I'm saying. So I'm seeing some comments come through here. Well, so I'm trying to reply.
They're getting the wrong side of things.
The conversation. Well, they're getting the wrong side of things. That's right. No, this is good. We're trying this out. So you may see me typing comments back to them. But so. The thing is, if GCI were to build a ground-up coaster at Cedar Point and Mean Streak was just coming down altogether, the fact that they're also building one at Kings Island is what's controversial about that. And the only Mystic Timbers, which we're going to talk about in next week's episode, is because of the style of it, I don't think it would be as controversial as you're thinking, because I think the rides would be so different. Mystic Timbers is going to be a very low to the ground, high speed, quick transition type of ride, and it's going to be very low to the ground. It's not going to have these big sweeping elements. It's very agile. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Agile, I guess, is the right word. It's very quick. Yeah, exactly. A Cedar Point ride from GCI that would go on the plot that Mean Streak is on would be very, Gold Striker Plus. I feel like they would take Gold Striker and bring it to the next level, like 130, 140 foot level, and really make it these big, long, flowing elements that still provide your good intensity, your good airtime, everything that GCI is known for. I really think if you took like Gold Striker and you put it in an MS Paint and you did lock aspect ratio and you enlarged it by 125% and got like a 140-foot coaster out of it, I think that's kind of what you would get there. Now, the thing is, we underestimate so much how big a plot of land that Mean Streak occupies. You could put multiple coasters there, which is why I thought maybe, well, if it is GCI, do they make it a huge racing coaster like a Lightning Racer to the extreme? But I can't, with Mean Streak not closing until September 16th, if they need to wipe out that entire structure and then build a massive new structure, I don't see that being done by May.
Let me throw another piece into that. That signs have gone up around Cedar Point saying that there will be 6 haunted houses this year. And Eden Musée, as you well know, is smack dab in the middle of Mean Streak. So, unless they build another haunted house, which we've seen no construction whatsoever at Cedar Point to indicate that they're building a brand new indoor haunted house, it would imply that Eden Musée is staying open this haunt season. And if that stays open, that means you're not doing a ton of demolition during haunt. Because it's open.
Yeah, well, and again here, so maybe that transitions into one of the next options, and this seems to be, I'm gonna lead this into the next option here, which seems to be the most popular opinion, and what people have been saying for years is the Iron Horse treatment. Yeah. And that would fall in line with the late closing date. And that would also fall in line with what you were saying, the fact that haunted house might still stay open, because that doesn't mean you have a lot of demolition work. You might have some here and there, but for the most part, you're going to be reusing the same structure. So, if that haunt is still open, then, maybe that's a hint. I think by the time we know that, we might have an announcement as to what's actually happening. But with the late closing date, I have to think that it's one of two things. Either part of the structure is being reused, or it's not a 2017 attraction, and they're taking a year off. And my point from the beginning was, I always thought maybe we wouldn't have a big attraction in 2017 at Cedar Point because they've had such a long run of major attractions. You go back to 2013, we had Gatekeeper and the front gate redo. 2014, we had the whole Gemini Midway refurbishment. We also had Pipe Scream and the Flyers going. We had a whole rejuvenation in that area. 2015, we had the Rougarou transformation, but we also had a lot of money dumped into Hotel Breakers. Yeah. So we had a lot of investment in 2015 in terms of infrastructure, and then 2016, we get Valraven. So also, we had a good 4-year chunk.
Yeah. Also to note, the Rougarou announcement, I just looked it up, was made on September 18th. I don't remember when Mantis closed, though.
Didn't it close sometime in early October, and then they started painting it before it closed? Because which announcement was that?
Mantis
was closing, or was that the
Mantis closed October 19th. Rougarou was announced September 18th, and they announced the closing of Mantis even earlier than that.
They announced the closing of Mantis right around Labor Day,
September 2nd.
2 weeks later.
Yeah.
It was that weekend.
So here's the timeline. September 2nd, they announced the closing of Mantis. September 18th, they announced Rougarou. And then October 19th, they announced the closing or October 19th, Mantis closes. So this is all moved up significantly. That we have an announcement here at the beginning of August of the closing. So everything's been moved up. So they're going to need more time. And that's where at the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about, well, maybe there is a water park expansion for 2017, because in theory, this thing ain't going to be done by 2017. That if you're really going to RMC it, like you said, Texas Giant took 1.5 years to RMC. We assume that's going to be quicker, but we know Ohio's weather is a lot different than Texas's weather too. That if it took you 1.5 years in Texas, it's going to take you maybe just as long, even if you go quicker, to do that. So maybe this isn't a 2017 announcement. Maybe Mean Streak won't reopen in its new form, in its new RMC Iron Horse form, until 2018, and we actually see the redevelopment of the last entrance at Cedar Point that hasn't been fixed yet, and that's the Magnum entrance of the Resort Gate. That whole area is the last turnstile that needs to be fixed up to meet the standards of the other three.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, because if you look at all the different entrances into the park, you had the one on the beach was kind of fixed with Windseeker. I mean, it was kind of redone. It's a small entrance, but you have a nice big ride right there as you walk in. Then you had Gatekeeper's entrance redone. Now you've got the Marina entrance redone with Valraven. That Magnum entrance is the one that is still old and tired looking.
Yeah.
So do we see something maybe with that? Maybe that ties into this whole water park thing, and maybe Mean Streak isn't 2017 at all. And maybe that's a later project, and we're taking a year off from the amusement park side in 2017. And maybe Mean Streak's 2018.
And I could totally see that happening. The only thing, and another thing, I know we're jumping around here and not following a linear line. The other thing is we all heard Jason McClure say in multiple places that what's coming next is going to complete the collection. And this kind of throws a wrench into it. That does the tearing down of Mean Streak and the rebuild of an RMC Iron Horse project, does that complete the collection? Because a lot of people criticize Cedar Point for not having a solid wood coaster anywhere in the park. Blue Streak's real nice. Blue Streak's your classic wood coaster. No one's going to consider that a world-class wood coaster, though. Besides my dad, probably. Move over to Mean Streak. Nobody considered Mean Streak a world-class coaster. So by you tearing it down and putting another steel coaster in, isn't that just giving you more of the same? Yes, it's going to be impressive. Everyone loves the RMC stuff, Iron Horses. You know me, my take's a little bit different. I like half of them. Is that going to complete the collection, though? I don't think it is.
I don't know. See, and people wondering where this comes from. Who was it? Tim O'Brien, who wrote the Dick Kindle biography, that said this. He was talking. I think it was him. He was talking to Jason McClure on Valraven Media Day and was overheard saying, "Boy, this really rounds out the coaster collection here, doesn't it?" And
I was
Jason
there.
McClure
I heard him say it.
And you heard Jason McClure was heard saying, "No, it doesn't. The next one will."
Yeah.
And that is another thing I keep going back here to. Does an RMC Iron Horse treatment of Mean Streak complete the collection? And my immediate answer is no, because then you're missing a signature large-scale Twister-style wood coaster, which is what Mean Streak is, but Mean Streak isn't good is the problem. And I think if you were to put in a Gold Striker, upscaled, you get a signature Twister new wood coaster that is much, much different from Blue Streak. And I think that rounds out the collection much more than an Iron Horse.
What if, now this kind of goes with my GCI theory too, but what if we get something new and we get a new RMC wooden horse? Because the process to Iron Horse something could easily be done with their wood track too.
That's something else I've heard. But here's the problem with that. Didn't RMC say that they weren't going to be completely retracking anything with Topper Track? The Topper Track was strictly going to be ground up stuff? Someone told me that somewhere, but I never read that. I don't know how factual that is.
That could be true. My 2 points against that would be, one, money talks. So if Cedar Point says, here's $20 million.
B&M never wanted to do a Giga Coaster either.
Exactly.
Look,
and then
2 of them.
On the side of that, I'm not suggesting that this is going to be just Mean Streak with Topper Track. I'm suggesting that you completely redesign this ride, just like you would an Iron Horse, but keep it wood, to keep it a wood coaster. Which, at the end of the day, really, what's the difference with the RMC style? It's the Topper Track and the Iron Horse. It's, at the end of the day, they do the same damn thing. So I think we've proven that with Goliath already, that the 2 rides do the same thing.
Well, here's another thought.
Well, let me talk about this thought before.
It's not. Here, go ahead, because I have to gather my thoughts on this next one, because I don't know how logistically it would work. So bad. So
here's another theory. What if GCI came up with their own Iron Horse-like project? And the reason why I say this is we see GCI involved in a lot of projects lately. We saw them involved in the Ghost Rider project that basically just retracted. Fine, whatever. But then we get something like the Legend project, where not only does it retract, it rebuilds, reprofiles, takes out elements, puts new elements in at a very small scale. That, I wasn't thrilled with what they did with Legend, and some people are, fine. But still, factually speaking, it's a different. They put in different stuff. They took an old ride, completely changed it. And what I started thinking about is a lot of people, back with that Darien Lake Monster idea, where they were going to take Predator and turn it into Lake Monster. And what if RMC or GCI did something like that? That you start putting in the inversions, you start doing the things that you do. A lot of people have said that GCI wants to get involved in inversions. It would require them to build a whole new train style, because those little lap bars on the Millennium Flyers ain't going to do it. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they wouldn't. I don't know. It's just a thought process out there of, maybe it's not let me say this. Recently with Cedar Point, the most obvious answer has been the answer. So last year with Valraven, we got the word early in the season it was going to be a dive coaster. It turned out to be a dive coaster. Usually the most obvious answer at Cedar Point is the right answer.
We knew about forever.
I know. So
we knew about that before they did.
And I just feel that this Mean Streak thing is going to be more of the same. It's most likely going to be an Iron Horse. So I'll throw it over to you for some of your thoughts, and then I'll throw something even bigger at you after that. So I got more thoughts.
You know what? Back to GCI for a second. I watched, Adam House, who, former In the Loop host, he's a design engineer with great coasters. He actually did an interview this week with the In the Loop folks, and he did about a half an hour interview, and he talked about how they have 4 2017 projects. They've got Invadar, they've got Mystic Timbers, and they've got 2 overseas in China, I believe.
That's a lot.
Or one in China, maybe one in Europe. I forget the exact locations, but they've got 4
That's a lot.
projects. That's a lot. I can't see them taking another big one. And the problem is, people forget that GCI, not 5 years ago, did a 2-year retract process of Mean Streak.
Yeah.
And that wasn't marketed at all. So I don't think Ghost Rider, I think something like that was much more marketable, because Ghost Rider was once a top 5 wooden roller coaster. Mean Streak never was. It's never going to be in its current state. It's not marketable. Ghost Rider is a marketable ride because it's the only really signature wood coaster in Southern California. You have Apocalypse. Great. I mean, that's all well and good. That is maybe the fifth or sixth most notable coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is known for their steel coasters like X2, Tatsu, Goliath, Superman, the Twisted Colossus. Those are the iconic rides there. Apocalypse is maybe the sixth or seventh ride you think of. When you think Knott's Berry Farm, people think of chicken dinners and Ghost Town, and Ghost Rider, and that big iconic wood structure that goes out into the parking lot. So that is a very marketable idea to make Ghost Rider great again. Not to sound like Donald Trump for a minute. Make Ghost Rider great again, and that's a marketable thing for them to do. For Cedar Point, considering they just did something like this, they are not going to be able to do this where people have been clamoring for them to tear this ride down for the last 5 years and to say, well, we're going to have GCI rebuild the track, come and ride it because it's going to be great again. It never was great. That's the problem here. So I think that rules out GCI because, at least for 2017, if they're tearing it, GCI could do something for 2018, I think. But they've got a lot of projects already. I don't think you're going to see something GCI for 2017. If it's a 2017 attraction, I think it has to be RMC or maybe it's not even a coaster. Cedar Point fans are going to shudder at that thought.
Let me throw this out to you now, okay? Because going back to the 5-year plan, 20 coasters in 2020. Whatever happens to Mean Streak, unless it's something really radical that you mentioned, that you do to a steel/wood coaster in the same area, dueling coaster of some sort, that are two completely different tracks, that it gets you to 2. Most likely, whatever happens, you stay at 18 coasters, whatever happens to Mean Streak. Okay, so let's say that they tear Mean Streak down, okay? And let's say that 2017 is a water park expansion on the Breakers side of Magnum, okay? Now, what you could do is in 2018, you could build a GCI on the plot of Shoot the Rapids. Because I think that's a better spot for a GCI coaster, is in Frontier Town.
I agree with you. And that's what some of the folks on Facebook Live are saying, that the Shoot the Rapids plot of land is more fitting for a GCI than the Mean Street plot. I agree 100%.
And to throw something else out at you, Jason McClure on Twitter has been saying that he's really hopeful for the future of Frontier Town. And that's kind of like that whole area is all Frontier Town. I think we're going to see two big – under this theory, you see two big expansions in Frontier Town. One, you see the GCI go to the Shoot the Rapids plot. Now, with the tear down of Mean Streak, you have just opened up a huge plot of land that could, in theory, be connected to the huge plot of land sitting where Ripcord currently sits, the Sky Coaster, that you move the Sky Coaster off, you put that into the park where it's going to make more money, and now you have an even bigger plot of land for your huge 2020 coaster that breaks all sort of records. Throwing that out there.
And the other thing, and this was brought up on our Facebook Live chat here, that we're trying this for the first time. We've got some people doing this. This was brought up. Don't forget that Tony Clark said that the 150th anniversary celebration will be like what King's Dominion did. It will be a 2-year thing. So we don't necessarily have to get 20 coasters in 2020.
I think you do. I think you do. I think you need 20 because it doesn't make sense 20 coasters in 2021. That's why.
The 20 in 2020 would make sense. But if you want to hit the 20th coaster, and you're going to hit it during, if that's the case, you're going to hit it in that celebration window. So 2020 would be the logical year to do it. The 20 in 2020 idea, that was ours, and we're going to stand by it till the bitter end here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going down with the ship, just like I did with Lake Erie Monster. I'm going down with the ship with that one.
Lake Erie Monster, we went down with the ship hard on that one.
So I'm going down with the ship, But speaking of that, you're at 18 now, minus Mean Streak would be 17, plus a GCI would be 18. plus your 2020 coaster would be 19. You just need one little coaster in the middle, and you can't tell me that they can't find a space to put a little, kids coaster or a dark ride that has a coaster element on it or or something. You fill in the blank there. I still think that getting to 20 in 2020 is not impossible.
It's very doable.
It's very doable.
Especially if you throw a dark ride coaster in there or a freaking haunted house like some people have been counting as coasters these days.
Well, or some people
Let's
are
not
counting
get into that, but
some people are counting Larson loops too now all of a sudden after that guy wrote his.
I wonder who those people are.
Well, this guy that I'm speaking of wrote his first Larson looper and said, "Oh, there's no way that's not a coaster," and that guy would be me.
And supposedly he's now upset that he passed up the Larson loopers and all the other parks he's been to the last 3 years because he's passed up all these coaster credits.
I'm like, I missed out on 5 credits there.
That's Andy,
Clearly
folks.
a roller coaster. Clearly a roller coaster.
Clearly a roller coaster.
So anyway, that
Adam
would be.
Beer just posted the YouTube link to the Badlands roller coaster, which is supposed to be for the Shoot the Rapid. That's exactly what we're saying. Give us that.
Yes. So I just think there's a lot of options out there. So if I had to rank these options in order of what would happen, the least likely would be that GCI comes in with their own Iron Horse treatment. I never know what GCI's got planned. Maybe that's something. I think the next weird option would be a complete teardown of Mean Streak. And one thing we didn't talk about is a complete teardown of Mean Streaking, kind of like GCI coming in, building a brand new coaster. But there's also the option of RMC coming in and building a ground up coaster too. So
yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing that I said, because if RMC if you were to tear down Mean Street completely and do a ground up RMC, then you could do it like Goliath at Great America. You could use the steel structure lift hill, it would go up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You could break all the records. You could do highest. You could do fastest. You could do most inversions if you wanted to. Who knows if they would. Probably wouldn't do longest. You probably wouldn't want to break the Beast's record. I don't know if Cedar Point would be like that now that they're in the same chain. I think they would kind of leave the longest record to the Beast. But RMC with the urethane wheels, there's no way you're touching that record anyways. I mean, you just wouldn't have enough speed. The ride would have to be so big. But you could go back and do the first successful wooden hypercoaster if you wanted to. And maybe do a 210-foot wood coaster with RMC, and maybe do 4 or 5 inversions and do something really crazy.
And to be honest with you, we don't even know what that would look like, because all the long RMCs are all terrain coasters, and that's obviously not what's going to happen here. That this is going to be on a flat pad,
a flat concrete slab.
Yeah. So, you look at like Goliath is way too short. It's on a concrete slab, so you can't really use that as a good indicator. Wildfire is more of a terrain ride. Lightning Rod, definitely a terrain ride. Still haven't seen how that is, though. Silver Dollar City's Outlaw Run, terrain ride.
We're being so subtle this evening.
It's
Can you tell we're bitter?
Yeah, Brian Bass, we're talking to you right now. We're talking to you, Brian Bass.
3 days. We're supposed to ride in 3 days.
So we don't even know what that would look like. Like, maybe they have, and then another wild card out there that doesn't fit anything that we've talked about so far. It doesn't fit Jason McClure's statement. Is what if they're going to do a T-Rex track, and do that completely new track, which, and then you came up with the idea that
it doesn't fit what he said, though.
Unless you come up with what you said, and you have a dual system, you have 2 coasters built on the same plot of land, 1 T-Rex track, 1 RMC traditional wood, and then they somewhat interact with each other somehow, and you have 2 separate rides, 2 separate stations, something like that.
Yeah, the way that I envision something like that happening, and again, you could question whether or not you could do this for 2017 with the late closing date, is tear Mean Streak all the way down, or maybe you don't tear it all the way down.
Yeah.
Maybe you use part of the structure. I don't know. But maybe in some way you have two coasters by RMC. You have a wood topper track coaster, and you have a steel T-Rex coaster, and they race, they duel, they interact. Think Dueling Dragons and Lightning Racer kind of meet each other, and like Gwazi, and if some near misses, you could have, like Twisted Colossus. You could have some stuff like that here. And I bet you I know where you're going with this, because it's something else I had. What if you pulled a Twisted Colossus and you had them connect at the end, and you had the first ever coaster that was both wood and steel? Let's forget about Son of Beast for a minute, because that kind of already did it. But what if you had the first coaster that was wood for the first half and steel for the second half, or vice versa, and it pulled a Twisted Colossus and went from the topper track to the T-Rex track and then did the whole thing again?
You know what I think would be an awesome visual, because that's one of the big things is Mean Streak leaving. One of the great visuals of Cedar Point is leaving. That no matter what happens here, if RMC comes in, it's going to change that landscape. It's going to change the profile of the park. But what if you did your dueling coaster idea and you had two lift hills coming up and they would drop down and cross each other? So you would have one coming up from the north going or south, one coming up from the south going north, and they would crest the hill at the same time and then drop. How cool would that be? No one's ever done that before. I've never seen a drop that crest, like all the racers crest at the same time and drop the same way. This would be it'd be like the high five coaster but going downwards. How cool would that be?
Yeah, I think the closest you actually got was Gwazi, where they went up across from each other and they both did 90-degree turns and kind of dropped towards each other and then peeled away from each other. But I think you could do something really cool, and you make a good point with the visual. When you are approaching Cedar Point, either from the causeway or even if you're just looking out from the mainland across the bay, I can picture when we went to Gatekeeper Media Day and drove to the beach along the mainland and looked across the bay, and it was the first time my aunt saw Cedar Point. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and on the right you saw brand new Gatekeeper, you saw the new front gate, you saw Raptor. Now Raven wasn't there, but then you move right. You see Raptor with its bad light package that no longer exists. It actually is a good one now, right? But you had Gatekeeper, you had Wicked Twister, you had Windseeker, you had Raptor, and then you get to the middle of the park and you see Millennium Force and you see Power Tower, and then you see Dragster and Magnum, and then you get to the left side of the park and you see a little bit of Millennium. You see the turnaround of Magnum a little bit, and then you see kind of Maverick off to the end, and the big backdrop on that far left end was you kind of bookended it. You had a medium coaster in Gatekeeper and Raptor on the other end, and then you had all these big things in the middle, and then you bookend it with another mid-size compared to the other ones. You had this nice big wooden structure on the end, which kind of bookended it and completed the package and said, there's the wood coaster. There's the big wood coaster there. And if this comes down, you lose that. Yeah. And it's a small thing, the visual thing, but it's different.
And I'll say this, that RMCs are ugly. I'll just come out and say it. They're ugly.
Rocky Mountain coasters are not pretty to look at. They're ugly looking structures.
They are better.
Some of them are great rides, but they're not fun. They're not nice looking.
They're better as terrain coasters because you can't see them, and you just ride them, which is fine. And now a GCI like Gold Striker with that massive turnaround, that's gonna, if you did something like that, it's gonna look just as nice as Mean Streak is. It's gonna look different.
Those GCI coasters have such beautiful looking curves and great structures. And it's the GCI coasters are almost works of art. The way that those support structures and the flowing, the GCI coasters look like one continuous flowing. Go to like COASTER-gallery.com. He has great aerials of Thunderhead, and it's just one continuous line. It's like someone just scribbled with a pencil in like a continuous circles, and that's what you got. The RMCs don't look like that.
Yeah, for sure. So
It's a small thing, visuals, but
so I think that's our next level is a brand new coaster going in there. And then I think the more likely answers is that either you get a teardown with a new GCI put there, or you get an I think the even money has to be the new Iron Horse. That usually, like I said, Cedar Point, the most likely answer is usually the answer. And so I think the RMC conversion is probably now the question is, and I'm not saying that's going to happen for 2017 either, because we said on the 5-year plan that it might not happen for 2017. This year might be a water park expansion, and that be put off. It won't open until 2018 to give yourself more than enough time to get it done. I don't know where this is going to go. Whereas with Mantis, we knew exactly what was happening. There are so many different options, and trying to fit all that in with what's already been previously said is the most difficult part of it. That we know what's been said, and trying to fit in the RMC Iron Horse, I don't know if that fits into it, which is the only thing holding me back from saying yes, 100%. This is going to be, unless they're building a GCI next year and then opening up Mean Streak the year following, like you have back-to-back, that puts you at 19. You still need number 20.
But then the big question becomes, what the hell is RMC doing for 2017? Because then we've literally heard nothing.
Well,
whereas if RMC was
if it
doing
takes them a year,
Mean Streak for 2017, at least it would make sense because it's all hands on deck. And we're going from 4 projects down to 1, and we're going to get it done, and it's going to work.
Well, I think we're going to find an RMC project. And I think the RMC project is going to come in because, they do all the track for the SNS free flies. So, that takes work, not a ton of work, in comparison to the wood stuff.
Stuff they have to do, though.
But people keep saying that Fiesta's going to get, or not Fiesta, that Over Texas is going to get a free fly. I personally think Fiesta or Over Texas might get a T-Rex track or a Raptor track. I don't know. Someone has to get one of those.
It would make no sense to put a free fly at friggin' Six Flags Over Texas because they just put one 3 hours down the road. That would be stupid.
I agree with you.
And
but hold on.
And I'll tell you
hold on. Wouldn't it be just as stupid to put 2 GCIs 4 hours away from each other?
No, because they're going to be completely different rides. No, see, here's the thing. But I go back to the point. I go back to my point of if GCI were doing something at Cedar Point for 2017, which again I don't think they are, because I'm starting to think less and less that they are because they already have 4 projects. Yeah, and that's a lot. Now I know Invadar is small and Mystic Timbers doesn't have a lot of structure to it, but I mean.
It's still manpower, time.
Big, yeah. I mean, Cedar Points would have to be big and, very big and flowing and long, and would be a very big contrast from what Kings Island is getting. But you're still going to have people comparing them and say, well, what would be, because, in the announcement for Mystic Timbers, I believe it was Don Helbig who said, one of the things that angered us most was that Diamondback didn't win Best New Ride. Prowler did, and as soon as that happened, we immediately said, we need one of those. And I don't think that if they were going to do that, yeah, exactly. I don't think if they were going to do that in the attempt to win Best New Ride,
but
is Cedar Point going to do something that's going to be better? Is Cedar Fair going to plan that again? Because that's what they did in 2009. They built 2 really good coasters, and now Kings Island really wants. They're building Mystic Timbers to win Best New Ride because that's where that whole thought stemmed from. That's where Mystic Timber was birthed from. Is Cedar Point going to do something to beat it? That's why I don't know if this is 2017.
Yeah. It really...
Are they going to do that again? Are they going to do it again?
One, I think it'd be freaking hysterical if they did. So I would find that to be freaking hysterical.
And what happens to Kings Island then? If a big GCI like Gold Striker comes to Cedar Point and that wins Best New Ride
Here's the
instead of
problem.
Mystic Timbers, does Kings Island then say, hey, we need one of those?
Here's the problem. Even if RMC comes in theory, RMC, if they Iron Horse Mean Streak, shouldn't that win Best New Ride automatically? Like New Texas Giant did. Every single RMC has been in the discussion for Best New Ride every single time. Outlaw Run did it. Iron Rattler came real close to winning Best New Ride, right? No. That was Gatekeeper
Well, it was
years.
right behind Outlaw Run.
Oh, yeah, because they were the same year. That's
Outlaw
right.
Run and
yeah.
Outlaw Run and Iron Rattler were right next to each other. Goliath was third behind Banshee and Flying Turns, of course.
Wow.
And then in 2015, Wicked Cyclone and Twisted Colossus were both in the discussion, but let's be honest, neither of those were beating Fury in any world. And personally, I think Thunderbird was probably better than both of those anyways.
Yeah.
I think Thunderbird was number 2 for me on that list.
So it's like an RMC of Mean Street getting back to the big giant Iron Horse conversion. Like, it's got to be in the discussion of Best New Ride. I don't know. So that kind of leads me back to like maybe this is 2018, or maybe it's just Kings Island gets the short end of the stick once again, and all the fanboys down there can go ride the beast and crying and.
Here's another question. When was the last time that Cedar Point and Kings Island both put in major coasters in the same year? No, I'm not talking 2014 with Pipe Scream.
That's not a major coaster. It's a coaster, but not a major coaster.
So 2014, you had Banshee and Pipe Scream. Then you go back to when was Kings Island's previous coaster, which was 2009, Diamondback. Cedar Point didn't do anything there. No. And what was before that for Kings Island? Well,
you could argue that everything that they put in was small before that.
That was their first coaster. Well, and once Maverick was 2007, Kings Island, Diamondback was the first big investment from Cedar Fair into Kings Island.
I can tell you. Let me go to Kings Island because I know all the.
Firehawk came in 2008, right? But that's a relocation of a clone. So
2005, no.
Watch, we have never had major additions in both parks in the same year.
Well, 2007 was Firehawk and Maverick.
Oh, it was Firehawk 2007? I thought it was
2007 was Firehawk and Maverick. And then other than that, there's nothing.
Right? So.
Yeah. But that's
That was kind of Cedar Fair. It's like, oh well, we've had this ride in our back pocket for the past couple of years now. Let's just move.
2001 was Flying Aerial Chase and Wicked Twister.
But that was under Paramount.
I know. I'm just saying
that was when they were competitors. It would have made sense for them to do it.
You can't even find coasters being installed as competitors in the same year. 96 was Mantis and Flight of Fear. That's about it.
Why on earth? That's what is so puzzling about this. Why on earth would they?
Unless
now here's a wild thought. Is Cedar Fair going to come out with another season pass that's good for just the 2 Ohio parks? That's going to be something new, and maybe that's why they're putting a new ride in both to try and get non-coaster people who live in Ohio to buy this season pass and go to both parks in the same year. Because you would think most people, especially people in Columbus, probably get a one or the other, and then they might alternate each year.
But what's the price
to
point?
Get people to go to both in the same year.
I'm just saying, what's the price point on that? Because your regular season pass is about $100, your platinum pass is $180. So what do you price it at 140? Why not just pay the extra $40 and, you know, is that enough to entice people to go to both?
Because people see the 140 gets me into the two parks that I'm actually going to go to, or 180 gets me into the two parks I'm going to go to, and every other park that I won't go to.
Now they have done
it depends on if something like parking is included in that or not, or like early entry at Cedar Point.
They have done dual tickets before, where you could buy one day at Cedar Point and get another one at Kings Island for a reduced price.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Steve here on Facebook is saying, because he's a Ohio guy. He says he's at both of these parks a lot. He says they have two-day combo tickets where you get one at Cedar Point, one at Kings Island. So maybe they're trying to capitalize on that and maybe sell more of those, or maybe they're going to up the price on those tickets.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a wild thought.
I think the answer is, to me, if I'm forced to give an answer here, I think the answer is RMC. I think it's Iron Horse, and I think it's 2017. That
I think if I had to guess right now, I would say yes, it's RMC Iron Horse for 2017, and I think the reason for lack of RMC rumors is the fact that this is going to be a big project where it's all hands on deck, and that maybe that's why it's taken so long to get this. Maybe 3 years ago, Cedar Point said, hey, we want you guys to do Mean Streak, but we want to keep it open for the entire year. We don't want to do this whole closing it down in the middle of July nonsense because we need the capacity. We want to keep it open until, the start of Halloween weekends. When's the first year that you can clear your schedule and put all hands on deck at the point? And they said, well, we've got Six Flags stuff in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. We don't have anything now. Let's pencil you in for that. And they said, okay, let's do it. And RMC just cleared the books and said, we're all hands on deck for Cedar Point 2017, because if we get it right there, we're going to get more projects with that.
Yeah, there's money.
There's money to be had there. I think maybe that's what's going on here.
Well, I'm not super confident in that answer, so just know that. But I think at this point, I think we've laid out a whole lot of different options. You guys feel free to comment on all those options that we gave you. We were throwing stuff out there left and right, kind of rapid fire style. One of those, it's going to be one of those. I think we covered all the options. I don't think there's
Unless
anything.
They build a huge building and it's going to be a dark ride themed to shooting down Mean Streak, and it's going to be some sort of axe chopping theme. Yeah. Sort of like Iron Reef, where the theme is you're tearing down. Yeah. No, that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be something we talked about tonight, I think.
Well, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut. Thank you for joining us on the brand new Facebook Live program that we got going on there as well. We'll be trying to work that in more often. So, as always, I am Andy Robarchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
And, as always, ride on, Ride Warriors.
Peace out, slackers.